Sen sat cross-legged on the deck of the ship, with his senses and chi extended. The ship had many excellent qualities, or so Sen had told himself, but speed wasn't one of them. Lo Meifeng admitted that the journey was moving slowly, even by the standards of sea travel. She also assured him that wasn't entirely a bad thing. The longer they spent wholly unfindable, the more likely the demonic cultivators were to assume they'd made a mistake and redirect their forces elsewhere. Demonic cultivators lacked the numbers and structure of a sect or mortal government. They couldn't deploy vast resources to track them down. They could hire people, she'd admitted, but hired help was always of questionable value and loyalty. So, despite having grown a little tired of the slow-moving ship, Sen had tried to make the best of the situation. With so much water chi available, he'd started to make a study of it. It wasn't his strongest chi affinity, but it didn't need to be when there was an endless supply of the chi type. He'd started small, just trying to make water do simple things. He'd made balls of water appear over his hands, then he'd moved on to trying to make other shapes. While balls of water were easy, other geometric shapes proved much more difficult. The water didn't like hard corners and straight lines. He learned how to force the water into shapes like squares, rectangles, and pyramids, but he'd also learned that the energy and effort necessary to do it was much more than would be practical, literally anywhere else except on the endless water chi supply of the ocean. The only benefit of those exercises was that they improved his overall control over water chi. So, when he tried to adapt the idea of wind blades into water blades, it was much easier than he thought it would be. Some of it was the curved nature of the blades. The water didn't resist that shape and all but lovingly embraced it. He also discovered that it was both easier and more difficult than expected to give those water blades a hard edge. When he tried to simply make the edge hard and sharp, the water resisted. Of course, it took days to figure out how to actually do it. Once he mastered that, though, he found it was a snap to make devastatingly effective water whips. He even tested out running across the top of water. It was a little like using a qigong technique, except he was hardening the water rather than pooling chi. While it worked, he very quickly decided that it wasn't something he wanted to try in rough seas. Running across water with comparatively gentle rising and falling water was one thing, but the sailors had spent some of their time telling him tales of their narrow escapes in bad weather. He did not want to try running up a wave that was 3 times higher than the main mast. While getting those techniques under his belt was satisfying, Sen spent most of his time simply observing how the water moved in the ocean. He was far less interested in the way the surface moved than the way the water moved beneath the surface. The surface conditions seemed to mostly depend on the surface weather. If the weather was nice, the waters tended to be calmer. If the weather was stormy or extremely windy, the surface was choppy. Yet Sen could feel water moving beneath the surface on a scale that simply left him speechless. He didn't even have words to describe the amount of water that moved in a specific direction, regardless of surface conditions. The chi that moved in those vast currents was simply frightening. Sen couldn't imagine trying to wrestle that much chi under his control. He wasn't sure anyone could. Maybe a god or one of the greater immortals could do it, but someone still locked into the mortal realm? Sen had his doubts. Sen understood on some level that he was still looking for that last bit of enlightenment from the beach.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.